Hi, what I am going to talk about today is probably one of the most difficult videos that I am going to make because mm, the subject had such a strong impact in my life, in my experience as someone who developed into a man that it's too overwhelming at times. It's somewhat unrelated to my general role-playing game content. There is some influence, you could say, on role-playing games, but this is for the most part unrelated. Perhaps a lot of you have already heard the news of the news of a mangaka, a genius, I would say, that recently passed away, Kentaro Miura. Mm, a lot of fans have already produced videos and images and podcasts and all sorts of tributes towards him. Of course, I know a lot of you already know about him because of his amazing masterpiece, unfinished masterpiece, which is Berserk. And it truly is overwhelming trying to speak what I think of this mangaka and his masterpiece, because there are already so many videos out there, so many podcasts, images, etc., and even forum posts that are very beautiful, expressing their condolences. Truly, they experienced the loss of this genius passing away. I also think that there are many that are just producing content to play with the YouTube algorithm because they know that right now that is a sort of like a popular topic. That's why I am going to give a very ambiguous title to this video, because I'm not reaching out towards towards an audience that, oh, look at me, I'm also producing a Kentaro Miura video, because I didn't even knew the man. A lot of people are talking as if they knew about him, and you could say that they were familiar with his masterpiece, and because of that they know about him. But I think that every man is truly a mystery. At least every man that is intelligent and imaginative is truly a mystery that you cannot fathom. So I cannot express sadness, complete sadness on his loss, because I didn't know about him. I could pretend like, oh, I feel so bad, but what I feel rather is that that fleeting moment where someone just produces something, this work of art, and it reaches you even though you are so far away from that person. He was Japanese, and I read his manga, and it had such a huge impact in my life over so many things that I have done, that the only thing that I can do is express my sadness that I never knew him personally, that the manga was unfinished, and that he probably had so many more visions to share with us. So this is me being completely honest about that. I am saddened, but I cannot say that I can grasp the sadness tied to the loss of another human being. It's more like that connection that I mentioned. So Kentaro Miura, I don't know pretty much, I don't know anything about him. So I can only express what I managed to understand of his vision, of his experience as a human being, through my understanding of Berserk. This video will contain some spoilers. I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum so that you can enjoy the manga or the anime. They have released several versions of it. You have the old anime that was unfinished, but it was pretty good considering the limitations of animation back then. And in current times, there were three original video animations and an anime series. Although many fans dislike the series because of some imperfections when it comes to the computer animation, I still enjoyed that series a lot. Mm. Okay, so Berserk is about a man by the name of Guts. He's loosely based on Guts von Berlichingen, among other things. I am not like a complete scholar or connoisseur about the influences or inspiration for Guts. The adventures that Guts goes through truly marks Kentaro Miura as a master of dark fantasy. You could say that he's even a cornerstone of modern dark fantasy. I consider him to be so. He has left his mark not only in manga, but also in video games. I think that some series and perhaps even some movies also took a bit of inspiration from Berserk, but mostly I've seen his influence in video games, other anime and manga, and even role-playing games. Every time you see this archetype of a dark swordsman, an anti-hero that is most likely a hero, but he's seen as an anti-hero because of he doesn't follow the mainstream. That's pretty much the archetype of Guts. Just like a small piece of information, I have seen that YouTube has been taking down many videos that go against the mainstream and what they do not consider to be correct. They want to force their vision on people. So if for any reason this or any other video in my channel is taken down, I recommend that you check out my backup channel in odyssey.com. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video or in the information tab of my channel, because I'm not going to hold back. At least, yes, I really cannot hold back when it comes to talking about Berserk and Kentaro Miura. Perhaps just for the sake of the channel, I will avoid some buzzwords, but yes, I'm going to express what I truly think about Guts and his impact, the impact of that fictional character in my life. Like I said, Guts is basically this swordsman, a mercenary. You see him experience so many hardships in his life. This series, the manga, the anime, especially the manga, is quite brutal and raw in its depiction of sexual assault, violence. So Guts has gone through so many things. It's one of those cases in which that person has almost seen it all, especially the darkness and degeneracy that one can painfully experience during certain interactions with certain individuals. Despite all of that, Guts is still, I would say, a man of honor. He doesn't follow a specific code, but he does still have that concept of right and wrong. He's pretty much a hero in my eyes. He does commit some, I guess you could say, questionable things, but in those particular moments, I think they were inevitable, or just they were tragic mistakes, and he was doing everything in his power to stop those things from happening. But sometimes, even to your best intention, when you are trying your best at stopping something bad from happening, it still happens. So Guts is not following a particular ideal. He's just trying to get by, doing the only thing that he knows how to do, being a mercenary. He's not a thug. He won't accept jobs that are beneath his level as a human being that is trying to be virtuous. He's not a champion of justice, at least not at the beginning of the series. But like I said, he still has his standards as a mercenary. This all starts to change when he interacts with a man by the name of Griffith. Griffith and Guts, they seem like polar opposites. Guts is, oh, sorry, let me close this thing, that something related to an update. Okay. When it comes to like this contrast or polar opposite situation between Guts and Griffith, Guts is a very tough guy. He is the archetype of the tall, dark, and handsome, in my opinion. Very tough, very sturdy, and unpolished in his techniques. And Griffith is the complete opposite. He almost looks like a woman. He's just that pretty. And he is not as tough as Guts, at least physically, emotionally, somewhat. Physically, not so much. But he certainly has more training than Guts. The only thing that they both share is that they are both mercenaries, although Griffith is a mercenary captain and Guts is pretty much a soldier for hire. And Griffith and Guts, they are always trying to get by in the most difficult situations. They don't have things served to them on a silver platter, or so they say, right? I'm Mexican, so there are some things that I don't remember correctly, but yeah, it's like that. That they're trying to hand you something, everything in your lap. In fact, Griffith managed to create this mercenary group after many hardships, and because of the strength of his ideal, trying to obtain a better way of life, that where you are not always trying to kill someone to eat. Although that is questionable, many things that we have, many of the commodities, even a certain degree of peace that we enjoy, is because many people are dying and fighting because of that. There are many hypocrites that criticize others for killing and fighting, but you wouldn't have any of the things that you treasure so much if someone didn't fight for those things. There are people fighting for many things right now in all sorts of fields. So Guts and Griffith, at first they clash because of their different ideologies. Griffith manages to defeat Guts in a contest and gives Guts the opportunity to join his band, the Band of the Hawk. As Guts and Griffith experience all sorts of adventures related to your typical mercenary life, they also encounter the worst and best aspects of mankind, both within the mercenary company and related to the different jobs that they take. But then, like in all good, I would say sword and sorcery stories or low fantasy stories, suddenly things take a darker turn. They start to see that there's a dark hand pulling the strings from behind the world stage. They start to see that there is a certain cult, a sect, a group manipulating things. Suddenly they start to encounter all sorts of demonic signs, to the point that that's where you notice that this is a dark fantasy setting. They actually fight a terrifying demon by the name of Nosferatu Sub. So they start to try to make their way in life, getting to the good graces of the king, carrying out all sorts of successful operations and battles, strategies, tactics. But the pull of this group that is just moving things like puppet masters or puppeteers is too much. And eventually, like I said, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, eventually Griffith will betray not only Guts but everyone in the Band of the Hawk, and they will all die except for two. After all of that comes crashing down, and Griffith becomes a part of that group, that evil group. Guts is left on his own to care for. Oh, there were actually, you could say, yes, 3 survivors in total. Yes, three survivors. Uh, so God tries to take care of these survivors, and while at the same time trying to fight against Griffith, because he's so charismatic, he has a sort of so much beauty in his words, in his appearance, that everyone thinks that Griffith is always correct. Everyone thinks that Griffith is always the hero, and only God has seen Griffith in his complete madness and his evil, his untamed darkness. I think that's one of the greatest things that you take from Berserk. Guts is moving towards mastery over his own darkness. He can wield his darkness at will. And Griffith cannot do this. Griffith is actually, he presents himself as an illuminated one. You could say that he fits within the Illuminati. And so all of the people that are pretty much cowards, are not very intelligent, you could say that they are deluded and they have their own delusions of reality. They see Griffith as a sort of savior. And that's where Berserk truly begins, in my opinion. You have this amazing prelude. Everything before that is excellent, but then you see the struggle of Guts fighting against different groups that are in favor of Griffith, or some others are in favor of, for example, the church, different kingdoms. And Guts is this, at first, this lone hero, this lone survivor, fighting against curses. He has been cursed by his encounter with that particular group, with the God Hand, and along the way, Guts does find some allies. And now I am going to move towards how that story has had an impact on me. I think that many others and I have, to a certain degree, identified with Guts. We are very different from him, of course. But when it comes to a man that doesn't know pretty much anything about the world, and he's presented with so many false truths, so many lies, you truly feel connected to Guts as you start to understand the lies, the deceit, the darkness behind many things in the world. For example, when I was very young, I knew nothing about fighting. And as I trained in martial arts, and I got to see the sports aspect of martial arts and the real self-defense, survive in real life in a deadly situation side of martial arts, it also felt as to how Guts got his experience in the battlefield. Very different contexts, but you still feel that impact. But then, when later on in life, I before that I had like a group of friends. They were not numerous, but you could say friends. But when I started to see that they could not grasp beyond the mainstream, everything that was taught to them in government approved books, in school, in according anything related to the news, how they got brainwashed by the mainstream media, how they were so afraid of being attacked and ostracized and rejected because they didn't want to use their own thinking, their own application of the scientific method, for example, because they feared they were going to be rejected. They preferred to blindly believe in what so-called scientists, the mainstream, the government, religions, etc., everything that they were taught about spirituality, about science, about culture, about history, they didn't want to go against the norm because they were afraid that they will be rejected, insulted, attacked in some way, ostracized, like their entire life was going to disappear. They didn't want to take that risk. So I felt like I lost all of my friends from back then, and I had to make new friends. So that's how I felt compared with Guts, because even though his friends, or at least the great majority of them, when he was in the band of the Hawk, they they all had honorable deaths. When Griffith betrayed them, they were members of the band of the Hawk until the very end. But I think in that case, I think Guts was fortunate because they were loyal and brave, most of them. But in my case, they just, I really cannot see them in a positive light. And when Guts started to gather allies, after that, a few friends that believed in him and his cause and fight alongside him in the current arc, although because the author has died, Kentaro Miura, we will never know his true vision of how he wanted things to end. There are some rumors that he left some notes and storyboards and that he talked with his assistants explaining how he wanted the series to end. We will never know despite that, the true ending of Berserk. Maybe we will be lucky in getting like a version based on those final notes and his talks with his assistants. But yes, to truly understand or to see what would happen in the end, that's pretty much impossible. So like I said, Guts had these new allies that eventually became family to him, and that applies also in my case. It was only later on in life, after my past life, in this very existence. I'm not talking about reincarnation and all of that. I'm talking about my, let's say, my mainstream life when I was going to school and college. All of that came crashing down, and it was only after that where I found the friends that I would consider the most worthy people, virtuous people in my eyes, at least. So Berserk is truly an example to follow. Kentaro Miura has painted this picture of a man that is not afraid to eliminate his enemies. He's not afraid to kill if he sees some sort of injustice. He thinks on his own. He has critical thinking. He is intelligent. In a way, he reminds me of Conan the Barbarian. I'm going to put a link in the description below where I talk about Conan and why not H.P. Lovecraft as well, because I think those certain archetypes do apply to them. But sticking to someone who is more related to Guts, that's Conan, because they are both very skilled in the use of weapons. For the most part, they are loners. They move on their own. Sometimes they attract allies, some allies that last for the rest of their lives, at least as we know in the stories. But you have this archetype of this very strong man whose bravery and purpose and an essential magnetic pull that goes beyond simple charisma pulls people towards them, because you know that this man that is fighting alone has something worth fighting for, worth dying for. So Guts is truly an example to follow. Do not conform yourself to anything that is being pushed on your mind, anything that you see in television. I no longer watch television. I only watch some different channels here in YouTube or in Odyssey, because now YouTube is truly censoring so many people and taking down channels. So if you want to find out the truth about something, go beyond the dogma and doctrine of different religions, of all religions. Become a scientist. Educate yourself, not by swallowing everything that the mainstream is telling you. Find the books and the tutors and carry out the practices so that you actually apply the scientific method. So many lies, especially related to our health and the current world situation, are being spread by people with very bad intentions related to people that want to sell you something, that want to push something, that want to control your life and that think that they have control over the lives of people. So do your own experiments, analyze things. It is possible to educate yourself and find out the truth. For example, just to give you a few things, many years back, or you could say not that many, they started to push this lie that humans could not withstand the cold, the extreme cold, and the extreme temperature, like when it's very hot, that you could easily die. And then we have Wim Hof with the Wim Hof method. I'm going to put a link in the description below. After doing his method, it's been 7 years since I have taken hot shower. I've only taken cold showers, and I've been moving in the when it's really cold outside, when it's snowing. I always go out half naked to test myself, and since then I haven't gotten sick. They also push that lie that if you looked at the sun, you're going to be blind. Don't look at the sun when it is during the highest index of ultraviolet radiation. You need to find those 2 hours where the UV index is at its lowest. I talk about that in a video where I talk about sun gazing. I'm going to put the link in the description below. There are only 2 hours where you can do that, just at sunrise and 1 hour before sunset, and you have to start out little by little, by seconds. And I completed the entire sun gazing method. I reached 45 minutes of looking at the sun during the safe hours, and as you can see, I am not blind. In fact, you may have noticed, just take a look at my video of sun gazing and see how I look today compared to back then. I actually feel as if I have rejuvenated. So many things have improved since then. You can even see that I have so much energy to be producing so many videos. So yes, there are so many lies, especially something related to things that they want to put into your body. And you see all of these people with chronic health problems that are obese, that they need glasses, that they are bald, that they have respiratory problems, digestive issues, problems related to the heart and blood circulation. And you see all of those people that live to 90 years, 100 years in even better condition, even better physical condition than younger people, and you see them that they come from villages where they do not enjoy the benefits of what they would say modern health treatments, let's call it like that, because truly YouTube takes down videos like never before nowadays. So yes, that's a way of applying the scientific method. If you see this guy that, like I said, is in terrible physical condition, and he has so many physical ailments, bad condition, and he starts to push this, oh, because the mainstream said that, or because you read that in that book, or because the scientists told me that. Use the scientific method on your own. Come up with those theories and hypotheses and put them to the test. Carry out your experiments. That's how I discovered the benefits of Wim Hof and sun gazing. They said, oh, don't do it, you're going to get sick. Don't go into the cold water. And I started to do the method little by little. And now, no hot showers for me. Even during winter, I take my cold showers, and I enjoy them so much. And I do not get sick. My immunity has gone up so much. They tell you, oh, don't do sun gazing, it burns your eyes. Or many religions, a lot of Christians told me, don't do sun gazing because you're going to be possessed by the demon of the sun. And I did sun gazing. Just look at me. I am far from being the best specimen when it comes to being a man, but just comparing myself to my former self before I applied these things, there is a great difference. So yes, you can use me as an example. You want to see the results, take a look at my older videos and take a look at me today. there are some very interesting differences. And don't believe that this is untreatable, this is incurable. All of the things, almost all of the things I would say that they say that are untreatable, are treated well by avoiding toxic foods. Like, there are so many bad things, starting with sliced bread. Everything has these horrible substances that came out from labs. And when you start to eat the most natural food available, when you start to treat yourself with only the most natural things, you don't need to buy anything. If you know the plants, you can heal yourself. Or there are people that know about such ways. And they start to push these so many lies because they trust that people have become very dumb, to be honest. And this is going back to gods. You see all of these examples of critical thinking, of trying things out on your own in God's actions. Every mystery God has encountered, he always takes it on by himself. Or if he's lucky with allies, he finds out the truth. No matter how many things he has to cut his way through, he gets to the truth, identifies the lies, the falseness, the falsehood, and finds out the truth for himself. So I am truly grateful to Kentaro Miura. He's one of the many authors that have inspired me, but at the same time, because of the way that God acts, the way that he fights, the way that he thinks, it almost seems like a technical manual on how to be a man, similar to Conan. There are so many good things that we can take from Berserk. Just look at so many areas in my life that have been impacted based on what I have told you, just on this simple archetype of the lone, dark swordsman that is trying his best, eliminating his enemies, piercing through the lies, thinking, using his own mind, his own thoughts. So if you ever have doubts about anything at all related to religion, to science, to culture, to history, don't wait for someone to tell you that truth. Find out the truth for yourself. Do your own experiments if needed. If you need to go somewhere, go to that place. Experience that place. Experience those people. If they are telling you some some lies about a particular area in the world or about a particular group of people, use your logic, your reasoning, recover that lost method, this scientific method. Right now, it's all dogma and doctrine. Science, what is being portrayed as science, it's basically religion. They are just telling you to believe. They are not telling you to do the experiments on your own and to see the results. So like I said, when you see all of those people that are in terrible physical condition and they have the most moronic ideas, they have so many issues related to their eyes, to their heart, to their digestive system, to respiratory issues, etc. They are not an example to follow. If they are always sick, their methods are not correct. And this applies to both the body and the mind and the spirit. Well, thanks for watching this video. I think I will need some time to get over the loss of Kentaro, specifically, yes, the way that he has such an impact on people, and how Berserk was unfinished. Like I said, I do not presume that I can experience true sadness or loss because I didn't know him personally. I'm going to leave a few links in the description. One to the theme of gods. It's such a haunting theme. And a link to a few channels that I consider worth watching. They provide logic, reasoning, and in many cases, evidence that has been rescued, even though the mainstream has been covering up all of that evidence. Please check out the channels that I'm going to put in the description. And hopefully this video won't be taken down. But like I said, I have already backed up all of my videos in odyssey.com. So if something happens, you can always go to odyssey.com. So yes, once again, thank you, and thank you for watching all of my videos. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And unrelated to these deeper thoughts, thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel with Drive-Thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you so much for watching all of my videos. I'm going to keep on producing reviews and many other things that look of interest or that feel exciting to me to talk about. Once again, thank you, and see you later.